Okay, we are back. All right, so now it's time to start shading. And what you're going to need for this, of course, is your pencil. And I want to just show you a couple of other little things. I'm going to say again, your finger works great. For a value scale, I know that I gave some of you the shading tool, one of these tortillon stomps. But I'm going to say, remember, I'm going to show you how to use it, but I'm going to say not necessary to use for this value scale. I'm going to ask you to save it. Okay, save it for when we actually start working on our perspective, back on our perspective drawings. And a good old-fashioned tissue. And an extra sheet of paper as a shield. And you'll see why we're going to need, or why we're going to use that and why that's important. All right, so again, just take a look at the finished example. You can see we're going to go from dark to light. All right, and then I'm going to ask you to, all of you, when you're working this, because we are going to start with our darkest square first. And again, if we look at the example, shading is an exercise in control. And what I want you to see is when you shade this, you want to do this controlled. I have you do this for a specific reason, and in the end, you'll see, you can literally see the pencil marks. So if I went in here, and if I go ahead and if I have a scrap sheet of paper, and I show you, if I just come in here and go in any crazy direction, I want you to be able to see that pencil lines are visible. You can see that. So that's why with this, again, these value scales are important because it's giving you that practice and showing you how, again, shading is an exercise in control. So we're going to start with this first square here, the scale that's broken down into 1-inch squares. And I'm going to ask you to get into the habit of keeping an extra piece of paper for a number of reasons. The first reason for, as we work this first value scale, is to protect, your hand so that your hand doesn't start smudging, the drawing that's underneath there. So when you start this, what I'm going to suggest you do is begin, going in one direction. And with this, you're going to go ahead and just start. Now, also, too, interestingly enough, you can see, because I'm working on a desk, you can see that that's getting, it's picking up the texture of the desk. So what I am going to do is I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath. So that way I don't pick up so much of the texture of the desk. Do you see what's happening there? But that's a cool effect. Again, if that's something you need, then I would say, I actually sometimes do that, have something underneath to pick up, a needed or desired texture. So you're going to go ahead and for this first box here, you're going to press as hard as you can. What I'm going to say, if you can look at the top here, you can see how this, even though you're trying to be, as controlled as possible, you're going to get that funky edge. So what I would suggest is, again, very controlled, at the top here, and you don't have to, press so heavy with it, as you go down just along that initial edge, and then you can go ahead and continue. All right, so what I'm going to say for this first square, you're going to go ahead and try your best to get it as even as possible. You're going to do as much work as you can with the pencil, and then I'm going to show you how you can go in with your finger and your shading tool. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you and do this whole shading chart. I just want to show you, initially how to start off. All right, so we have this much done. You can use your finger, and if you come in there with your finger, again, on this ditto paper, it works really well. Okay, the other thing, like I told you, I gave some of you already a little shading tool. And if you haven't received one, you will this week. Okay, because we really need this for our project, not so much for this. In fact, again, I'm showing you because this is something you can use, but I wouldn't recommend it so much. Okay, not for this. We want to save it for the actual project. And a tissue works well. And now I'm purposely going to be a little messy here because I want you to see like that kind of stuff that happens. One of the great things to do with your extra, sheet of paper, that's what I'm telling you, keep it one handy, is after you're done shading, and if things get a little messy, whether with your finger or a tissue, you can go ahead and take your piece of paper. You could wait till the end or do it as you go. And even those extra little register marks, you can go ahead and clean up your drawing. In the beginning too, I showed you this kneaded eraser here. Okay, what's so great about the kneaded eraser is it doesn't create that residue that some, that a basic eraser would. So that's what's nice about this kneaded eraser. And once it gets dirty, you can literally knead it. Eventually, this is something that you're all going to get, for those of you coming in. All right, kneaded erasers are my favorite. All right, so now we have that. We have this first square. And then what you're going to do is you're going to consciously go ahead and start the next. And you're going to really try to make sure that you don't get it as dark as you did here. And you're going to continue. Now, if you look at the finish, all right, you can see again that you're slowly going to take your time. You know, you're going to make sure that you're not pressing as hard as you did on your first, and gradually continue down the value scale, keeping the last one the white of the page. Okay, and now I'm going to just scooch over to this one here, because you can see that this one's a little different. This one's, you know, and I'm going to say, you know, you're going to finish this one completely like you see here, and then you're going to jump over to this one. And this one's a little different only because you don't have the lines. You don't have to worry about the lines. And you're going to use this as your reference point. So for this one here, you go ahead, you'll start with that, just that little bit, you know, at the top. So then that way, you know, applying the right pressure, applying as much pressure as you can for this first box. And then again, you'll have this scale complete already. You'll know about here, you're going to ease up on the pressure. Okay, and then you're going to continue. Now I'm going to do this with you as a class, so you'll see me do it as a, you know, with you. And once again, we'll always have our picture at the end of the day to go ahead and show you where you should be. All right, and now this one here, and it's going to be the same thing for this one here, just like you did here. You're going to press as hard as you can, and again, you can see your pencil line, so that's important to take note of. You want to make sure that you don't go crazy with, you know, with your pencil marks, because it is really visible. Pencil lines are visible. Okay, so, and in the end, why I have you doing this is because if, like I said, if things were normal when we were doing, you know, our basic shapes, our squares, all right, when it's time to shade, and it is time to shade, we are, you know, in our perspective drawings at a point where we're ready to shade the sides of the boxes, all right, you know, and according to our reference point, you know, if we look at the drawings that we've done in class and how far we've come, all right, it is that point where it's time to shade. So that's why we're kind of taking a break from the, you know, the composition, but I plan on going back, you know, so this is as far as we got. And once we are done with our value scale, we're going to go ahead and just do a little bit of shading on our, you know, our practice piece before we jump into our actual project. Okay, so in the end, this is what you want to hand in. You want to make sure that everything is labeled. You want to make sure you have your 2 5-inch rectangles. You want to make sure that one is broken down into 1-inch boxes. Again, if it's a little bit thicker, all right, if you used a ruler, again, we're not using the ruler traditionally. We're just really trying to make sure that in a very quick and easy way, you know, that you get your 5-inch rectangles, okay, and then your 3-inch square. All right, and again, if it's not perfectly placed like this, that's okay. I'm not, you know, I'm not looking for perfection and, oh, it needs to be 2 inches apart. No, you just want to make sure that everything is labeled. In the end, it should say atmospheric perspective. It should say value scales. It should, of course, have the word value like we've been doing, the definition, and of course, your name should be on it. Okay, and as always, any questions or problems you may have, of course, you're going to reach out and let me know. Okay.